16th, 6 p.m., calling the school building committee meeting to order. Erin Linville will be joining us in a little bit, but we will proceed without her for now. So I did not have anybody sign up for public comment, and of course we're not in person, so nobody's here. And Erin did not email me anything either. So Margaret, I'll turn things over to you, and you can begin the review of the schedule.
Sure. Do you want me to do that, or do you want to take attendance first?
Oh yeah, I'm used to Erin just counting, so we don't usually actually take attendance.
Well, we can do it. I think we can do it. I can just call out names, but it's harder for me to tell who everybody is. So why don't I just call out names and say aye if you're present?
Sure. That's a good idea.
I'm going to do this back to front. So Mayor Garcia, I think, is here. Kenia Davila? No. Aaron Brunel, I see, is here. Anthony is here.
Nope.
Yes. Nope.
I don't see Mr. Soto yet.
Okay. Whitney is here. I see Raina. I think I saw yes. Peter Tallman, I see.
I'm here.
Mark Lubold. Yes. Kathy Ortiz. No, Kathy. Jessica Perella. No, Jessica. Okay, Jamie Morrow. No, Jamie. Okay, Jackie Glasheen. No, Jackie.
Her daughter was crowned Grand Colleen, so she might be a little.
I saw that. Very cool. All right. So no Jackie, but I do see Deborah Vega.
Yes, here.
And I see David Yost, I think.
Yes, here.
Yes, I do see David Yost. And Camilla?
Nope, not here.
Not here. Okay. Anya, unfortunately, she's on a note just a little while ago saying she couldn't attend. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 members of the regular committee. And then I also see Ron Collmore, and I see Wendy. And is Isaka here? No.
Someone else just signed on, but I don't know who it was.
Okay. So I think I've got the attendees. So we've got 8. We have a quorum, correct? Okay. All right. So the meeting objectives are established that are in the agenda, if you haven't had a chance to look for it, to share updates on progress since the last meeting, review the proposed site plan and the basis of design, if that is ready to talk about, we'll talk about what that is, discuss the timing of presenting to City Council, share working group updates, if any, and review next steps from the last meeting or other notes. So I believe, just like at the last meeting, this is going to be mostly a presentation from Mount Vernon Group. So I'm going to turn it over to them to lead it. And actually, Frank, if maybe you could just make sure that your team will introduce themselves as well.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
I'm Frank Tedesco, Mount Vernon Group.
I'm Chris LeBlanc with Mount Vernon Group.
Is Dennis on?
Dennis and Hugh are having a problem. Aaron, could you send them another invite by chance?
So Aaron is
having a
not
problem.
here right now.
This is Candace. They've been promoted. They just have to accept it.
Oh, thanks, Candace.
Tell them it comes in like a pop-up in case they're having trouble.
It looks
Okay.
like they're going through now.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Good.
Terrific.
I'll go ahead and then jump in though. I'm Naomi Cottrell with Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architects.
And JP Charbonneau with Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architects.
There's Hugo.
Hi, I'm Hugo with Mount Vernon Group Architects. Sorry
Okay.
for the delay.
Is Dennis coming on?
Let me check, let me give him a call.
It looks like Jessica joined as well. Hey, Jessica. And Ksenia has joined from my office. Pam Gosine, I don't think we've met before. Are you on the design team or? You're muted for some reason.
No, can't hear you, Tam.
Okay, so we're waiting still for Dennis is joining us.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yes, Kim goes on with Brennan Consulting. I'm on the site civil team.
Oh, great. Okay.
Are you
So
able to enable this is Joanna Castilla, the interpreter, the interpreting mode?
I can't.
Yes, I think I can.
So with that, so we have a quorum and everybody's had a chance to say hello. So I'm going to turn it over to Mount Vernon Group to make their presentation for today.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Great.
Or Hugo, you sharing your screen?
Yeah, I can share my screen, yep.
Okay.
You see, the presentation?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can.
Okay. Hold on. Hello. I just got on. If you get onto Chris's last link.
So Chris and Frank, who's going to run the show here? Is it Hugo?
Hugo will run the presentation and yeah, you're muted, Frank.
I'm on the line with Dennis. He's still trying to get in.
Okay.
All right, he was able to get on. He should be on in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Hello? Hello, hello.
Hey, Dennis, we hear you.
Yes.
Okay, finally in.
Okay.
Sorry about
All
that.
right. So I guess take it away. Hugo's going to run the slides and who's going to talk?
I'll talk through the slides.
Okay.
Frank will as well if he's here. So we've been working on and have completed our work on bringing the school into a square footage situation using the program as we have it.
611, yeah.
We got all kinds of things going on. Bringing the building as we have it into a total area of 106,215 square feet. This is the first floor plan, and everything is pretty much in the same place as you remember before. But one of the things that we've gotten rid of is the link between the first and second floor in the back. We still have links from both wings into the courtyard. So that still works. And that helped us considerably in reducing the space. And when we go to the second floor, we've been able to do something to set back our, on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that we were able to set back the side entry a little bit, put a canopy over it, and still have our labs work out properly. So, and with many little things like that, but keeping all our spaces at the same size, within approximation in all our classrooms at the average 925 square feet, maybe a couple feet up, a couple feet down as you move from one to the other, just because of, where columns are and where chases are. We're in there. Now, what does that mean? Well, the next slide will show the Jones Windset building. It had a net square footage. Now, what net square footage represents is all the program space plus other space that is in the building. And the gross square footage is the entire building. And it uses a grossing factor that complies with the MSBA minimum of 1.5 or maximum of 1.5. Now, our net square feet, as you can see, is greater. We're at 72,369 square feet. Now, we've added things to the program, like the some extra square footage in the science department to make the spaces larger, at least one, adding a science space and being able to manipulate space to make a classroom larger to become, to work out as a science room for the 6th grade. Now we have 2 STE rooms in the 6th grade, plus we added the world language room. Our gross square footage is about 65 square feet larger than the Jones Windset, but our grossing factor is 1.47. So we've got a much more efficient building. And Frank, are you on the line? There he is. Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, so we just double checked with MSBA today, Carl Brown. I just want to confirm that with this grossing factor, it actually gives us a total of a little over 2,000 square feet of space that we can put into the program, which is in the program now, which may have been not counted, which they will now approve. So we can, in other words, the differential between the 1.47 and the 1.5, so they would fund everything in the 1.5, but they will give us that extra space up to the 1.5 on this particular plan. What that means is that certain things that would not be allowed, such as Katie's closet, some of the therapist meeting rooms, the extra small conference rooms and things like that, will be funded by MSBA, and it will be allowed. So it's about almost 2,000 square feet of that I think we can do. So we will be working on the template to make sure that we maximize the amount of approvable space within the template. So it's actually very good news. By reducing the net to gross ratio without cutting any of your actual program space, we are now able to add some of the stuff that would normally have been disallowed. So we confirm that with Carl Brown, and we'll work on it and give options the next time we meet, or by next week we'll have that.
So Frank, thanks for confirming. Can I just ask, I can't see everybody's faces right now, but does everybody understand on the committee, understand the difference that is being made between the gross number and the net number? I just want to, I see heads nodding up and down. Can you raise your hand if you need a more detailed explanation of that? Because it's a really important issue. Okay, so Camilla's hand is up. Anybody else? I think Camilla, I think you're listening to this partly through translation, but the easiest way to think about this might be that if you have a classroom, that is considered net space because it's occupied space that has a use. And the spaces that connect the building, like the corridors, the mechanical spaces, some of the other spaces that are needed to connect all the pieces together but aren't occupied for program use, that's the difference between the gross. And so it's typical for buildings like these, like schools, this grossing factor is pretty typical, and the MSBA is pretty ruthless about enforcing it. Like if they see a number above this, the 1.5 is the limit. Now Mount Vernon Group's doing a little bit better than 1.5. So I can understand that Carl would be supportive of the work that you're doing here. Does that help explain, Camilla? Close enough? Okay.
Well, one way to kind of explain it, and as Margaret said, it's all the corridors, the toilet rooms, the non-essentials, like all the wall thicknesses all around the building, any other space that's non-programmable and not allowed. So then you multiply that by 1.5 and you actually will get a number. In this case, if we were to, with the 72,369 square feet of net space, is actually, as you can see, almost 2,000 square feet greater than the original Jones Windset. No reflection on what that was their program. Program has been added here to about 1,800, 1,700 square feet. So we had more net square footage, but because we were able to, as Dennis explained, we were able to bring in the ends of the building a little bit, eliminate a stretch of corridors, we have a factor of 1.47. What that essentially means is that we will be able to add another 2,000 square feet within this 72,000 that might normally have been disqualified for reimbursement that we can now get reimbursement for. So it's going to be much more helpful for the city to get a higher reimbursement on the building. So I think that's good news. It doesn't seem like a lot, the 1.47 to 1.5, but it's very difficult to bring it down. And that represents about 2,300 square feet difference.
That's right.
So it's really pretty good. We're pretty happy about it. It took a while to get there, but I think it's going to really enhance the program and the funding for the project.
Margaret, I'm not sure if you see that Mr. Yost has his hand up as well.
I did not see that. Dave, please speak.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. I just wanted to clarify if we do add those the small conference rooms and so forth, is that going to increase the gross square footage?
No.
Or the net square footage?
It's really like that. Nothing changes in the plan that you saw. But within that plan, there are certain spaces that are not reimbursable but they're necessary for your program, but they were not, under MSBA guidelines, they're not reimbursable. Some of the specialist space that you have and things like that. Because we have a lower net to gross ratio, that differential of about 2,300 square feet. And he said, don't go right to the 2,300. He said, leave wiggle room. So that's why we're saying about 2,000 square feet of program that would not have been reimbursable will now be reimbursable because they will reimburse up to that 1.5 as though we had a fully 1.5, which they allow. And that's how it's at the bottom of the template. It says other, and they kind of explain it, but the only time that you can use that other, or one of the few times you can use it, is when you get below the 1.5. It's very unusual because usually everybody's at or even above 1.5. So this is a very efficient building now, even more so than it was. And I think that's a good thing.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any other hands. So Matt Vernon, why don't you carry on with your next thoughts?
Well, as we move on, I think it's a good time to ask Crowley Cottrell to make a presentation of the site.
Hi, I'll start here. Just so that everybody is oriented to this is your existing plan with Carlton Street to the page left and the Dingle and Beach Street to page right. So it's actually plan north is to the right. But this is your existing building, and just to orient everybody, we've developed the site plan for this initial, around and to get some pricing on the site work. And so we want to walk you all through this to see what we've developed so far. So if you can go to the next plan. So this is the new building on the site. And so what you're seeing a lot of articulation and color and rendering of is the resultant plan. And we are, I'm going to walk you through the plan from the left, again, from Carlton Street to the building, and then to the right down to the high school. The dotted line and the color inside is the areas of the limit of work and the places that we're actually touching with grading. And part of what's happening here, and you all are familiar with the site, but that the site is quite a bit of grade change from left to right. And a lot of the work that we are doing is to carve out a flat plane for the building, but also to carve out flat plane to drive and to walk and to circulate. So we are moving a lot of dirt to make this happen. And so I'll just talk a little bit about what's happening. So if you come out off Carlton Street and you come into the site, we've actually left the parking lot that is shared along this drive with the YMCA as is. One of the things that we have done is we have added in sidewalk so that there is actually a pedestrian way to get from the parking to the building instead of walking on the road as a shared. We like to separate vehicular and pedestrian in school projects. We have a drop off, somewhat of a circle or a semicircle for the families to drop off and pick up. So it lands on the level of the first floor of the building, and there's, as you've seen before, a landing that rings the front of the building where the drop off happens and folks can circulate around then to the front door. There's a section of parking right out in the front of the building that these are all level and relatively flat. And so this is the opportunity for all kinds of accessible parking as well as just really convenient parking to the building. And continuing around, we have then a larger lot to the north side of the building. This is slightly down from the first floor of the building. And so we have an accessible walkway that connects the parking to, again, the landing that is at the front door. You can continue around in a vehicle to the back of the building, to the area. This is the service area next to the cafeteria for deliveries. There are some parking spaces here for staff or folks that work in the cafeteria. And then we have an area that we've developed that's outside of the gym. You can see here that we're showing you the size of this of 2 basketball hoops as an opportunity to have some outdoor play connected to the gymnasium. This area actually would be, we're proposing a gate between the service area and the area that we're considering the spill out from the gym. There's also a gate that is on the service drive. This drive here, we would expect the drive that goes up from the main drop off to the back is something that is really more of an occasional way. This is part of our fire lane. It's quite steep. It is not accessible. And so we would like to close it off to most visitors during the course of the day. It also allows us then to really have the area off the gymnasium be something that it feels quite safe for students to spill out before they say maybe then make their way up to the upper field. We have sculpted into this embankment that is between the building and the field an accessible path that scissors up, as well as a direct stair that comes up, so making that all accessible. To continue down, I think that we're going to show you just a little more detail on what we've put into the plan so far, but the most challenging part of what we've been doing is trying to figure out a way in which to get accessible paths and a reasonable slope of a driveway to connect the parking lot at the high school to the building itself. So if we look at the driveway, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the planting around the building. I know whoever's doing the cursor is pointing, but the driveway is an important piece. And in collaboration with Brendan, our civil engineers, we had to carve in the driveway. You see it's sort of a curved shape, but we're very specifically keeping it under an 8% slope, so that it is something that can be plowed, it can be driven on. It is not an accessible walkway. And again, not only to make a path accessible, but to separate vehicular and pedestrian, we have also then carved in an accessible way to get pedestrians from the high school up to the school. And so that's this longer path that comes up and around. This is a lot of different levels and a lot of grade change. There's a lot of different moments in here that we think are real opportunity for learning and a real beauty. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we go forward. So what we like to do is pull things apart so that people who aren't used to reading plans can understand this in a little bit more detail. So if you go to the next slide, this is just zoomed in so that we can see the details a little bit more. So we can go back to this at any point. This is sort of just to orient you. Again, the driveways and the vehicular areas we're showing in this sort of warm gray tone. The circles are all proposed trees. So we're just to, again, orient you to the way in which we draw plans. And then we have different tones on the ground, and we can talk a little bit more about what that means as we go forward. So why don't we go to the next slide? This is just to show the paving. We've turned all of the other things on the proposal to a gray, but really to start to look at the different types of paving. So we have a bunch of different paving types that we've called out here. And I know that some of you got this material in advance. But the different types of paving. So we have 4 different types of paving, from asphalt to concrete to a unit paver. And then we are even showing would have to reroute the more, let's say, woodland path through the dingle, the edge of the dingle, in order to make our grading work. So that's another paving type that we're showing. If you go ahead to the next slide, we can show you what this all looks like. So predominantly our vehicular roads and most of the pedestrian paths we would propose out of asphalt. It's obviously standard paving material. It's also actually works really well on steep slopes for both pedestrian and vehicular. At certain spots, we are going to have cast in place concrete. These are for landings and special moments. In places that we want to have to make it more of a place. The third paving type that we're showing is a unit paver. We're showing these right around the school, the front landing, to give a little bit of extra texture, but also we have the opportunity to make it permeable, still accessible, but permeable so that we have a better stormwater calculation. And then lastly, thinking about that stone dust or gravel trail at the dingle where we would need to repair some of that through the grading exercise. The next slide, go ahead. So we also, because again, there's steep slopes and we're creating flat plains on steep slopes, there are then resultant walls and stairs. We did talk about the stairs going up from the gym, but there are also some other locations where we would have some stairs connecting to the neighborhood there near Wedgwood Terrace. There's a set there right now that needs to be repaired. We also have stairs that come up from the walkway from the high school. The longer path that goes up, up and around is an accessible route. We are inserting stairs into that path because that is a quicker route for people who are able-bodied and can take those stairs. The site walls, we have 3 different types of site walls that we want to show you. Ones that are close to the building that we're labeling it as S1 are more of an architectural concrete and a poured concrete wall. We think that's appropriate for right around the building. As we move away from the building, we're going with a more economical site wall, more of a block wall. These are quite large walls that we need to be able to carve in these drives and hold back quite a bit of grade. And then the third type is down by the dingle. And what we're doing here is there's a large specimen tree right on the edge of the dingle. We want to make sure that our grading activities keeps that tree safe. And so we would be creating a stone wall around the drip edge there to hold the upper area that we're creating away from that tree. The resultant is actually that there's a flat gathering area underneath the tree that's accessed from the path on the dingle. This wall and the wall across from it we're proposing it as a gabion wall, which is a little bit more of a natural stone. It's a very economical way of having a free draining wall. We can go to the next page and we can look at that a little bit. So again, in and around the building, we're looking at cast in place concrete walls, again, more architectural. The big site walls would be segmental retaining walls to hold up the roads as we move around the site. The gabion wall is, again, this would be what we would be doing over in the dingle, and maybe the character in this one where the cursor is right now is more the feel of it. Gabions are steel cages, almost like lobster traps that get filled with rock, and they're very nice to naturalize an area with. And then lastly are the stairs that we were proposing throughout the site. Our proposal is that they are cast in place concrete with simple steel handrails. The next slide, please. And last on the hardscape is that we also have put into the plan thought about lighting. The yellow indication of lights would be more of a parking lot or a larger scale light that would be on the roadways and in the parking lots. And then we would like to propose adding in a pedestrian scaled light to bring people up from the high school up to the main entry of the building. So just 2 types of lights. And if you go to the next page, you can see what those look like. Again, a roadway or vehicular pole light, which is a taller with a larger spread. And then we like these medium-sized pedestrian pole lights, probably 12 feet or so. These are both down lights and are compliant with a dark night sky regulation. Go to the next plan, please. I'm going to pass this to JP because he's spent a considerable amount of time designing this planting scheme for you all. So he's just going to walk you through these different character zones.
So Naomi, you and JP works for Crowley Cottrell, who are the landscape architects, and also Cam, who's here, is with the civil engineering firm. So the civil engineers and the landscape architects are working very much hand in hand here because as I think they're going to go into in more detail, it's a partnership around how to get all the site work to work.
That's correct. I mean, really, at this point, the larger concepts that you're seeing here are things that we've discussed and vetted with one another, as far as working out things like the way in which a fire truck runs around the site and And those things, again, we vetted that between both civil and landscape. A lot of the things that we're talking about tonight are the materials that will drive the site work. There are technical aspects of things like stormwater management that we haven't quite gotten into yet, but trying to just settle the pieces of where roads, walks, landings, and other things go. And so much of this at this point, even though it is illustrated and looks quite finished, we are studying how to make all of the earthwork and things kind of settle down together. And that's really, again, what we want to show in the planting is to show the character of what we think the landscape will come out looking like.
Yes,
so I'll
it's
pass to you, JP. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Naomi. It's definitely a work in progress. Everything that we're showing here to you all is a work in progress. This is by no means final. We definitely have work to do with Brennan to figure out stormwater management and where they strategically can go. And that might be a combination of surface retention or detention and subsurface detention or retention. It still is in process very much. But this topic is because we are landscape architects, we are especially excited about the planting opportunities that can come to this site. And in a way, contrasting the way the existing school is now, there's an opportunity with planting to better stitch in the school and have it fit in with its context. There are basically, I would say, 3 or 4 different character zones in terms of the type of planting that we're proposing. L1 is meant to indicate lawn, so this is more high use areas, more visible areas, your typical mown lawns. We have images following these pages, but I'll just briefly describe them. L2, there's an opportunity here, we think, for a more garden-like experience, and we thought that this could be, in addition to being an accessible way up to the second level from the first level, this would make that a more experiential garden-like walk. And we tried to make this, focus this kind of experience into this one particular area rather than having it throughout the site. We thought that was more appropriate in keeping with the higher maintenance required for this type of planting. L3, we thought because we do have generous amounts of paving around the building, there's an opportunity here also to bring in planting into paving. So that's what that is meant to indicate. L4, which is probably the largest amount of planting characters, is open meadow, because there's a lot of earthwork that needs to happen that will clear some of the trees that are there now. But there's an opportunity here to make this feel open, inviting, and welcoming. And then the final type is the more of the buffer type along the edges of the school. And that's mostly to screen the neighbors, but also make the school feel like it's embedded within and separated. If we go to the next slide. So L1, along the driveway for the parent drop-off and along the bus route, these are more your mown lawns with ordered trees to kind of herald or signify arrival. L2 is the woodland garden walk that we mentioned earlier that is close to the building. A little more intensive planting, type of planting, but also can be very inviting and kind of a different, more landscape texture and experience. Next slide. L3 meant to indicate planting in paving, whether that be with trees in paving with grates or cutouts of paving to bring in planting as a way to break up the scale of those plazas. And then L4, this is the type of meadow that we are proposing. There's certainly many different kinds of characters meadows can be. This is more of a tall fescue type of meadow. Certainly wildflowers could be added to this mix, but this is a simple way of making this feel open and inviting, and with just some selective additions of trees to give some sense of scale. And then finally,
just before we move on from that, I just want to chime in that we like to do these meadow plantings on larger sites like this, especially when we start to grade and have slopes, because it makes it easier to maintain. So especially the lines that you're seeing are contour lines, so 1 foot contour. So those bands are actually quite steep, so it slopes. And we like to propose meadow because meadow gets mown once or twice a year. And so it makes it much easier to maintain. So sorry, JP, go ahead.
No. So we have about 43 feet of grade change happening from one end of the school down to the high school parking lot. So it's a lot of grade change. And the positive about all these moves is that these are big moves and big ways of creating space. And through grading and planting, we can actually fit in and stitch in the school and fit it in with the dingle and the high school. It feels a little more part of that, those surroundings. It's context. If we go back to the last, yes, and this is just the woodland buffer. It's a mix of evergreens and deciduous trees. Some of that, because these are steep slopes, they can be planted young. They don't necessarily have to be full-size trees, but the idea is that this is very much kind of an edge condition. I believe that is the last. Yes.
I don't know if it's worth entertaining questions. If you want to go back a couple slides to the plan, this is probably a good place to rest. Well, if people have questions.
We'll go with Mr. Lubold first. I saw your hand pop up first.
Well, thank you. First off, Naomi and JP, I absolutely love the plan so far. And so a quick question. Has there been thought, I'm not sure what the protocol is, you know how you see the blue lights around college campuses that might, connect to the police department or something where, if people are, somebody felt threatened, they'd be able to go to that blue light and hit the button and there'd be a call for help?
I think that if that's something that the town wants to see, then it certainly can be added in. We haven't really gotten to that level yet.
Okay. I'm just thinking out loud at some of the things, and that just kind of, I have a high school senior. We've been doing the college visits, so I kind of got some of that in my mind,
It's a long walk from the high school up to the middle school. So yeah. I could imagine, especially there, that you might want some sort of call box or beacon. Definitely, right. It's a good point.
Yeah, we can maybe get to that. Like you said, maybe it's a little too early to discuss that. We're just kind of at the conceptual stage, I guess.
One of the reasons why we did have the pedestrian lights on that path is because that is an area that without those lights would be kind of dark. So the road coming from Carlton will be lit with more of those street light kind of lights. So we don't worry about that pedestrian way, but this other being really sort of part of this larger landscape felt like that needed to have pedestrian.
Oh, that dingle area. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Mark, very good point. And I can't believe we didn't think about that before. But as we go forward, we might want to be sure that we pay attention to safety and security in that dingle area. Mm-hmm. Whether if it's the blue or making it nice and bright or adding an emergency button, but just keep that in the back of your minds.
Yeah. And is it appropriate now to talk about like the bus route, or are we just kind of talking about landscaping right now?
No, we could talk about the bus route.
And so, we had a subcommittee meeting, the other day to kind of just talk about the site plan and, as we're trying to get this in at a certain, maybe, it's going to be expensive site plan the way I look at it, and I know we have a limited budget and, the intent is to have this great school, and I would love to have the whole darn thing. Don't get me wrong, but is there a way to, when we're putting together estimates of, if that roadway wasn't there, would there be a savings, and would it be worth even, looking at that?
Yeah.
And, if the buses continued to come in off of Chapin, will they be able to get out through Carlton? We were just kind of thinking of different things to talk about in the future. And I don't know if this is the time to talk about those type of ideas,
No, I think it's good, Mark. All of these things, and as the mayor brought up, we met with the police chief last week, and we went through a lot of some of their concerns. It was a preliminary meeting. We didn't get to the site, but we certainly will. But yeah, in terms of costs, when we get our estimate in, we will look at value engineering items and alternatives that would save. That's why I always advocate for an early site package, because
I love that idea.
No, you get, because you get, the general contractor is the site contractor, so right off the bat you save 15%, and it's very competitive, and you get good prices, and they really bid on a job like this. Would be a very good job for a site contractor. They come in and they get it done and they get out. So we would look at how much that would save us, and there will always be what we call value engineering items that we would look at once we've got an estimate in.
Okay, and I just, if there were a case where we had to, do some things, would a bus be able to come in and navigate out without that road?
Yeah, there'd be a way to do it, I'm sure.
Okay.
I think this is the way we seemed like a logical way to do it.
Yeah.
But we could definitely explore other ways, if it's necessary to bring costs down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I do like, the long grasses. I can already picture them swaying in the wind, and, just a nice place to spend some time.
Yeah. I particularly like their idea of saving that sort of special tree and have this great gathering area around the old tree and protecting it like that. So just a fantastic, and that means anybody going on the path can just stop off there and rest.
Yeah.
It'd be very nice.
Thank you.
I see Deborah has her hand up as well.
Good evening, and thank you so much for your very detailed presentation. I can tell you put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's great to see some visuals tonight. My question has to do with the gym and the area that will be used for events in the evening.
Yes, you want to go to that plan, upper second floor plan?
Yeah, so I just want a better understanding.
There you go. Yeah, second floor.
With the gate that will be blocking off that area, it looks like there won't be a drive up to the gym. So just understanding the access point into the gym, and then also in regards to lighting in that area, because a lot, the games and such happen at night, and just thinking about safety in that back.
So this is, you're asking about people that are coming to the school at night that want access to the gym. Okay.
Yes.
So they would probably park in the main parking lot and take the path at some point up to the gym and then enter. They could actually enter, they could actually enter here at the stair and go up to the gym, because the gym is it's a little higher than it's above the first floor, because it's the slope of the site. So if you go to the site plan, to the floor plans real quick, second floor plan right here. See, this is actually higher. So you can enter at grade below where the stair is, and go up the stair and in, and we could work that out so it would be locked off from the rest of the school and enter the cafeteria and gym area. So there'd be a couple ways to get in.
But where you're pointing now, isn't that the front side of the school, and then
No,
parking is in the back side of the school?
no, this is
Yeah, what-
It's
Yes.
oriented differently than what is on the site plan.
No.
So this is,
Deborah, yeah, what Deborah is saying is the top of the plan as we show it is what faces the parking.
that's correct.
That's
Yeah.
there that we're talking about.
So the parking lot
There
would be
you
up
go.
above here, above this, and then you'd come right down into
Yes.
into the building, or you could take the path up and around the back.
But I think also the gates would be open after school hours. So if
That's
somebody
right.
wanted to drive up closer to the doorway to drop off.
Yeah,
people,
that's completely in your control. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. You know, we do that to protect, you know, during the day. I think it was an excellent idea by the
Yeah,
landscape
I like that
architects.
too.
Just to be able to, so that the kids could play safely up there and run around and not have to worry about, you know, delivery vans. Now, if a delivery van does come, they would have to drive up and be let in to this area in the back. Wouldn't affect the
Actually,
play area.
Frank, where we've located, if you go to the zoom in plan on the next slide, the gate is actually after that court, the service.
that's
court,
right,
We're
yes.
calling the service court. So really the place that you would open those gates or gate if you want to get to the gym. But the idea is that it's just during the day that it's so that there's free movement from the gym out. But there are ways to get up there, certainly.
Yeah.
So maybe those few parking spaces that are like behind the service area
Yeah.
could be designated as handicap for events, because otherwise they're traveling quite a distance from the lot up to the entrance point, because they
Yes.
wouldn't be able to come in the side and use the stairs. So maybe we could have signs that say, you know, after 3 p.m. or whatever, that those are designated spots for events and gymnasium functions, because it looks like there's at least, say, 6 spots there. So that's more than enough to have as accessible parking, perhaps.
I think
Oh,
that's a great idea. We can certainly do that.
And it's also an accessible walk from the larger parking lot up to the second level as well. So there's
Yeah.
multiple places for
Yeah.
accessible spots.
It's just a little far,
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
but yeah.
And I would entertain with what Aaron said about those parking spots, maybe some lighting back there as well.
Yes.
Yes. Lighting, it was a first pass and it's still to be worked out. And yes, there's certainly additional lighting that can be added, especially on that back side. It also could be building mounted, for example. But yes, it's a detail that we need to work out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because I would envision those basketball courts obviously being lit up for nighttime for students to use outside of school hours, which would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's if that's how you all envision using it, we can absolutely. Some schools don't want things lit at night because they don't want to encourage people hanging out around outside. So if it's something that you think is right for your school, then we can absolutely add. There, I would think we probably would do building mounted so that it actually points towards the basket as opposed to in someone's face.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we light up the courts at our current schools now. I'm not the expert on that, but I know Sullivan School I think is lit up. So
Those hoops will be used extensively.
a lot. Yeah,
Okay, great.
We
our
need
public
hoops.
hoops are used a lot for sure. So that would be a wonderful bonus. And if it's a wall right there, maybe we could have it be like a hand court wall or you know, something like that on the exterior where they could play
Sure.
against the building.
I can tell you that I prefer the half court.
Yeah, it's nice.
You don't have to run as far.
All right, we'll let you guys reconvene and keep going.
So I want to jump in. And Naomi, I sent these written questions to you. Anya Ryan, who's on the committee and is a landscape architect, unfortunately couldn't attend tonight's meeting, but perhaps through the subcommittee, she must have had a chance to look at the plans, because she sent some questions I thought we might want to take a little bit of time to talk about. So one of them was, I'm just going to read her question. The positioning of the lighting along the pathways and drives looks good to me. Does the lighting meet dark sky initiatives?
Yes.
What would the glare be like for neighbors?
So we would can you navigate back to the lighting diagram? So in areas where they're near neighbors, we would have what's called cutoffs. So say the ones that are along that edge. we would have it be a spread that is like a 180 spread as opposed to 360. There's ways to do all of this. What Anya's asking about as far as dark night sky is that no light goes up, that all light is focused down, and so the fixtures that we've selected are all down focused as opposed to out or up. And you can see because they're shielded fixtures, it's not, you know, like a globe that lights, everything is pointed down. And again, there are all kinds of options for having a fixture rather than spread out in 360 degrees to put in directional shielding and other things. So we would absolutely look at that.
She also asks about the safety, which I think the group's already talked about. And she also asks, will an in-depth lighting study be conducted? So I'm assuming that you're going to do some sort of metrics of the site when the lighting is set. Is that right? And is there anything else you would be doing?
So typically we're required to do a photometric study. And so for folks who aren't familiar with that, it is that it's a computer program where you put your lighting fixture and the location in, and it shows how many foot candles of light there are in different locations. And so what it helps us do is that if we realize that there are fixtures maybe that are too close together and it's getting a really, really hot spot, a bright spot, and a really light spot, say next to it, we would move fixtures accordingly to make sure that there's an even distribution of foot candles. And we want to follow sort of the regulations for the amount of light. So we don't overlight or underlight. And we check that by doing these photometric studies, which would be later on in the process.
There are just a handful of questions here, but they're actually really good questions. So I want to bring them up while the committee is here. So second question, which I'm actually a little bit surprised Whitney hasn't raised his hand yet, but the second question from Anya was, how will the landscaping be watered? And will there need to be an irrigation system? Is that assumed?
Well, I think that part of this goes to the piece of this that hasn't been completely figured out yet, in that we do have to contend with stormwater management and figuring out if there are lower spots that might collect water versus areas that are captured. I mean, part of this is that the places that we can imagine are a little bit more high intensity planting. So really it's that one garden area where we've this sloped curved garden walk that connects the upper floor of the gym and the dining hall or the cafeteria to the lower level. That's one of the few areas that's sort of a higher intensity planting. And the rest of these areas would be more naturalized. And that's really our thought, is that certainly we'll be using native plantings that use less water, but there will be water needed for establishment. So whether that is temporary or permanent is kind of up to the school. But I think that the rest, especially the meadow plantings, and we would be selecting varieties of trees that really can naturalize and won't require a ton of water. So it's a great question. I mean, I think that our intent would be to pick things that have a low water requirement.
Yeah, I would add, if I may, for our sustainability credits, we try to go to zero irrigation.
Yeah, some would be allowed for establishment. But
yeah, for establishment, yes.
Yeah.
You can have as much as you want, but I'm saying there's no permanent irrigation for the site.
Yeah. So again, having a meadow and a rougher lawn helps with that too.
Yeah.
Because certainly when it's a mown lawn, it's a much higher intensity as far as the requirement.
Okay. So our next question was, it looks like there are 2 half basketball courts on permeable pavers on the west side of the school building. Are pavers a good b-ball playing surface material? If the paver courts are also part of a shared use drive, is there enough clearance for a box fan to go by? It looks like the basketball hoops may overhang onto the drive. Why were permeable pavers selected there? So that's a whole bunch, but you can break it down however you want.
We like to add in permeable pavers into a site. And just to remind everybody, can you go back to the plan that shows the different types of paving? There we go. Oh, go ahead. Forward one. There we go. Oh, back one slide, please. Thank you. So the P3s are the places that we were showing permeable pavers. And really the permeable pavers we have in these locations because they're nicer looking. I mean, they're a step up, we think, from just an asphalt or from a poured concrete. We definitely can reconsider them for the backside of the site. I mean, I think that we like the functionality of the fact that they allow for some infiltration of stormwater. It helps us with our overall calculations for stormwater. I mean, I understand that it's not a perfect, this is not going to be a gym floor out here. So I think there are definite trade-offs. It's something we can look into. I don't know how, and I think that we want to hear from the school is how high performing of basketball courts do you all want? And maybe if you want to have handball and other things here too, it's a better spot for a different type of paving up there by the courts. I think that's a good thing for us to look at.
Is someone talking about outside courts?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So can you show us? So what we've shown here is like a typical 3-point key up there on the upper left of the building. That's the 3-point line and like a foul shot key there in the middle with the T-shaped thing at the top is the actual hoop that overhangs and I think that we can move that back. Certainly we can make there to be plenty of room for a box truck to go by. And our intention wouldn't be that there would be box trucks going through there hardly ever. I mean, the idea would be that deliveries stop at that at the service area and turn around there. But if it is a requirement, certainly we need to get the fire truck by there. So we just need to make sure that there's clearance from the hoop and that road.
Yep.
Did I answer all those questions?
Yeah. I mean, you're batting high here. I just want to recognize, I see Whitney's hand up and I see Josh's hand up. So Whitney, I think you were first.
No, I defer to the mayor. Let the mayor go ahead, please.
Okay.
Excuse me. The basketball court, it's a space for handball court. Great. I think as we go forward with presenting this plan, especially if we have a neighborhood meeting. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think that as we go forward with presenting this plan and for any future neighborhood meeting we might have, keep in mind the neighbors, not sure if they'll be too thrilled about having a basketball court there. However, it's designed, and I love the basketball courts, I'm for it, but just know we have to be prepared to, mitigate those arguments. People might not feel too good about it that live nearby.
Okay.
So, Whitney,
going in and out, concern having
Aaron, your feed is a little bit goofy right now. I'm gonna go to Whitney and then to Aaron Linville and come back to you.
Sure. A couple comments in regards to the vehicular traffic for deliveries. I was asked a couple of weeks ago by Mount Vernon Group in regards to what we normally accept there for primarily food service deliveries. And we do have box trucks smaller van cabin chassis on a day-to-day ongoing basis, as this kitchen may serve as a hub for the district, possibly. The other larger ones are subcontract vendors to the food service that can be up to a 24-foot box truck, and we occasionally get a 40-foot tractor trailer in there. So that was my response a couple of weeks ago in that regard. I don't know what the turning radius for the unloading zone is there outside of the kitchen, but it might be tight for going around. So I think we're going to be using that gate and that circle route around by what would be the southwest portion of the building a little bit more than we imagine, because I don't think anybody's going to be able to do a 3-point turn with some of those larger vehicles in there. So that was one thing. The other thing is in regards to snow and the fact that we like to store on site as we get multiple storms without trucking the excess snow off the site. So if you're looking what would be the southeast corner of the vegetation adjacent to the parking area, during our work group, or the building design work group that met last week, we had discussed moving the parking, if you're looking from left to right here, moving the parking more to the right and then putting a vegetative zone all the way on the far end of the parking, on the southern end of the parking, so we could dump snow on it. If we had planting everywhere, we got to put the snow somewhere. I don't see a lot of footage that we can put snow, especially in the back of the building. So those are a couple considerations. The other one I'm just going to keep going on, and don't expect any great conversation now, but you can integrate it into your thought, is the routing for the actual ADA accessible route, the 1 in 20, the 5% pitch that goes up and switchbacks down again. Is there any possibility of routing that to the what would be the easterly or the lower portion of this page here and hugging the side of that hill to take advantage of the natural topography, or are there still areas there that are a little too steep in order to make happen? In other words, I think we're going quite a distance out there. I think it'll be beautiful, but it's just not a very direct route. So I understand the stairs that come up to cut that short for folks that can handle that. It also builds in quite a challenge for the custodial staff to maintain that. So those are just some initial observations. The lighting seems great. Vegetation, I'm sure, will be fine. I do question the roadworthiness of the pavers in regards to larger vehicular traffic, only from the standpoint that I appreciate the beauty and the permeability, but we're going to have some traffic up there for sure. And what do you integrate on the site for loading and unloading? Are we simply assuming that there are lift gates on all these trucks, or are we going to have some type of an accessory mechanical contrivance to back up to, or is it simply just on grade? So that's it.
Several questions there.
Yep.
Maybe Mount Vernon Group can talk about one of the more specific ones about the lift gate and all of that, because I can't answer that.
Well, I don't think there is a loading dock that you're expecting here, Whitney. Is that correct?
Yeah, Frank, I don't think there's any way to get it.
Yeah, no. So, I think there could be some kind of a ramp system that would be available to go up to the truck just for deliveries, or so we'll have to look at some options there.
Sure.
Aaron Linville, you want to chime in with your question?
I did want to say that the path that comes up from the high school, and I know that's a long route, and that there's stairs and all of that. The way in which it's the longer route to take, that's the only way to get an accessible path at a slope that's under 5%, carved into there. That's the length is just determined by the number of feet that we're climbing. So although it seems like a long way, it's really the shortest, given the requirement of it being a accessible under 5% slope.
Because we are going up 43 feet, essentially you need 800 plus feet of length to get up. And that's part of the reason why it seems so long, which is why we thought providing a shortcut with steps would be a nice feature. But yes, it is a long way.
Well, I think the only other way you're going to be able to do that is if you commingle the ramp with the accessible route. So in other words, steepen your pitch, bring it up to an 8%, throw in railings, resting platforms, and so forth.
Right. We try not to do that because that's even more maintenance and expense.
Yeah.
So we try to do it without that. Even the way to go with the stairs is something that is, say, that's it could be extra, could be taken out, but we try to do a path so that it is really economical, although it's a little longer. The thing that we like about it is that the way in which this land would be sculpted, and potentially, again, that there would be potentially some infiltration basins and things that really show the stormwater on the surface. It could be a really interesting learning experience on that path, potentially even with some spots to kind of like stop on, and teachable moments along that, as well as being, again, an accessible route.
So no doubt, Naomi, you and your team have done remarkable, and there's a lot of visual excitement there. So we really appreciate the headway you've made so far.
I think we'll get into snow removal, and we'll definitely want to coordinate. I think that, again, with the idea of much of the vegetation around the main parking lot, especially being that rough lawn or meadow, that much of that landscape can actually take snow, and it be pushed off the edge. So we just need to coordinate a lot of that with you.
Sure.
Thanks for your presentation, and sorry I was late. I did have a question for Whitney in regard to Whitney, don't leave, into regard to the basketball courts. We're putting in new basketball courts at Sullivan Middle School. And so do you have a sense, Whitney, of how high quality those courts are, to help inform the previous conversation? Otherwise, I'll follow up with Matt Kosmeskis, who's our ED of Ops.
Yeah, Aaron, we've planned asphalt there. We currently have asphalt. We're going to plane and resurface that existing subbase. And so that gives us the type of play surface that allows us the stability of play, the smoothness of the surface, but still, aggressive enough so there's not slipping. And also gives us other opportunities if we cared to do other markings on it and so forth. So that's kind of been the standard here. I mean, this, as far as Sullivan is concerned, in this instance, we have basketball hoops on the other side of the existing facility, and those are on asphalt. So, like Naomi says, mostly it's pushing back the hoops so we don't catch the backboard and the goal on any vehicular traffic. So, and I agree with Frank, half court. That's what the kids play these days. Nobody runs full court, so it's a nice setup. I also agree with Josh in regards to the neighborhood. We don't run a lot of lighting at the other schools. Sullivan lights haven't been on since I've been here, and that's forever. So the lighting here on nighttime would tend to draw too much activity to the school, which may be a detriment, and you certainly would want to have the option of controlling it. But all in all, I think, judging from the fact that we would have vehicular traffic of a larger capacity and road weight, I think we'd want to head towards something a little more traditional and thick as far as our surfacing there, simply to accommodate those two primary needs.
And in terms of what activity can happen in that patio or terrace, it's really the basketball court is one idea, and it's not really meant we're not married to it. We'll obviously work with you all and the school to figure out what's most appropriate for that place. But the main idea is that we want to provide an area for students to occupy and play in without having to go up to the field. And that's the main driver, the main idea.
Well, and just to be clear about the district's usage specifically through the school, is that in the marginal seasons, especially now when we're getting out of the snow, but we're in the mud season, Crozier Field is not usable. It's a mud bath. And when you have the kids only having a short period of time in order to get out from the cafeteria, the proximity you offer us now compared to what we currently enjoy with the cafeteria being on the other side of the building, this, first of all, it's a great marriage. So I think the basketball hoops are a great idea. Recreational play space out there is a great idea. So let's not stick with that path, please. I'm just saying that we might want to go with a traditional roadway with a heavier base, and then utilize that, because really the transition time from lunch back to the classroom is pretty quick, and the kids need every chance they can get with close proximity to the cafeteria. So I think it's great idea.
Well, absolutely. Thank you. And really the basketball half courts, they're just painted lines. It really could be flexible, right? I think it could be used for many different things, not just for basketball. So that's the great opportunity here.
Well, you could bring color in there too, as well, with acrylic coatings and so forth that really can do a lot of things. And that brings a lot of excitement to the area.
For sure. Great ideas.
Erin, did you have anything else?
I had a question. I texted you, Margaret, because I missed the beginning, but I don't have anything else from the part I heard.
Okay.
I don't want to waste people's time.
So, Erin, let's finish the landscape and come back to your question, because I think it's worth revisiting. So, Naomi, almost done with Anya's questions, but there are, the last two are important. So one is just to describe how stormwater is being handled on the site, which you mentioned components of that, but I think it might be good to touch on that. And then the last question, which is probably the most challenging to answer the bunch, is what is shown on the plan within our budget. So could you start with just a kind of overall description of the stormwater management plan, and then talk about how you're benchmarking this against what Mount Vernon had presented to the committee as part of the selection process?
So the stormwater has not been figured out yet. That's a layer that we need to work on.
Okay.
Right now, the tectonics, or the sculpting of the land is based on getting these cars and the people in accessible and reasonable ways from one point to the other. So much of that work so far is driven by those programmatic needs or wants. And so we are thinking, we have ideas about stormwater that we're going to be working with Brennan on, but at this point it hasn't been completely layered into the drawing. We don't anticipate that it would change the shape of things much, but there might be, in places that we're showing, say, a simple slope and a flat, there might be some depressions for collection and other things. Those are things that we need to work out. And then as far as the budget is concerned, again, I think that we want to put a price to this so that we can do that value engineering exercise. We'll say that we aren't trying to make this, we haven't designed a diamond here. And JP touched on this, that the area that we were calling L3, that's the meadow, is a very affordable way to landscape a place. And so we're trying to be economical and really have those, what we're calling more like high intensity landscape elements really close to the building, and not be very many of them. There are moments, but that the overall site is done in a pretty straightforward manner. So we'll know more about the pricing once we get this back, which is why we wanted to hustle up and do this much detail, because we would like to get a real price on it.
Yeah, I could add that what we did, we didn't have a design when I was asked to kind of give an estimate of the overall price. So there was an estimate that was done on the Jones-Windsor plan, and it was a pretty full development of the site. I extrapolated that with inflation at about 15% on that, and that's what I used as an estimate. So that gives us a budget. I've forgotten the exact number. I don't have it in front of me. It's around, I can't quite remember. I thought it was around 8.5 or 9 million for the site. So, but I will get that to landscape folks and we'll start working toward that. But I believe that we can do this within that budget because the original, as I looked at it, what they had done was pretty similar here to what we're doing here in terms of cut and fill and so forth. The only differential is the extension of the road down to the high school. I think that's the only main difference in terms of cost. But we'll learn more as we go ahead.
Naomi, can we just touch base for a minute back, get your thoughts in regards to your experience with residential runoff that ends up migrating to the site? Wedgewood Terrace flows to the site, Chapin flows to the site. We already have existing storm water collection systems. Obviously, they're combined with the storm sewer, so it's not a compliant form, but again, much of the city is not. Do any of these structures grandfather into your design at all from your experience?
I think I would punt that question to the civil engineer if I can.
Yeah, Cam, if you could.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Cam Gozine Brennan, the site civil engineer. Yes, actually, along the bus drop-off area where you see the handicap parking where Chapin Street comes in, there's an effort to utilize the existing catch basins there for stormwater in the event that they are actually grandfathered into being able to discharge to the CSO, the combined sewer system.
Nice.
And there's also an effort to potentially utilize landscaped areas around the building as depression areas, not necessarily as surface basins, but maybe just in order to divert stormwater away from the building so you don't have ponding in front of the doors, issues like that. And then those can also potentially collect stormwater. And the one along the parking area, yes, that parking area there is another drain manhole there that is connecting to the existing CSO system. So that, granted, it's at a much lower elevation under existing conditions, but if there's a way that you can raise the rim on that, if the basin isn't, if the drain manhole is in good enough condition, we could potentially connect into that and utilize that if that's grandfathered in.
That's great because that has just been recently replaced in less than 5 years. And a majority of the water, I can tell you now, comes in from Carlton Street and Wedgewood Terrace. And if you look at the topography there, it rolls right down the primary entrance to the school.
Absolutely. That was something I noticed. And actually where the cursor is right now, I was looking at putting a depression area in that landscaped area right next to the building, and maybe a swale in the landscaped area above that leading to it, just to sort of divert any rainfall, any rainwater coming from Wedgewood Terrace, coming from the field, and that drive along the and that drive along the school, just to make sure that stormwater doesn't run into the school. So this has been mentioned before. This is a site that has a very large grade across it. So there needs to be an emphasis on making sure that stormwater is handled properly and doesn't, run into the school. And that's something that we're looking very closely at.
I think I'd just like to add that part of what the planting strategy is trying to do with those areas that were shown in sort of a darker green tone, where really thinking that if we can buffer plant, that it does two things. I mean, it visually can separate and make some some screening, but also that it could be a rougher ground plane so that it slows down water a bit and helps for things not to run off as quickly.
The area in question that I see as being a challenge here would be as you enter Cam into that larger parking area, that original structure, as you move from left to right and you get to the end of the parking area, if we have any type of debris backup on whatever collection we may be able to harvest there from an existing basin, then if that backs up, then we have a lot of issues over by the existing kitchen, if you will, at the top of the dingle with a catch basin there. If that backs up, then the dingle washes out the pathway. So it's quite a force to be reckoned with, as you can imagine.
Oh, I'm sure. I noticed looking at the existing conditions, looks like there are several drain lines leaving the site that connect to that CSO. Maybe an opportunity to utilize multiple systems just to sort of divert different sections of of stormwater, so you don't have one system alone or one manhole alone handling several acres of land's worth of stormwater, and then running into issues like you just brought up.
The good news is the dingle actually serves as a swale, if you will, for the Crozier Field, which is actually pitched towards the dingle. And I have seen large trees floating, and also the dumpster over by the back of the Hoyok High School adjacent to the cafeteria doing pirouettes during a large thunder shower. We actually have sandbags inside the high school at the thresholds of the doors that are approaching the back of the kitchen as well as the cafeteria. We've lost cars there, half a dozen cars there in a recent storm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of water.
And I'm glad you brought up the dingle, because that's actually something that we're also looking at, potentially using that for stormwater management. Maybe creating a natural basin down there. That's also something that we could look at.
Absolutely. Excellent.
I don't see any other hands on the landscaping. But so if there are no other questions, is there more to the Mount Vernon presentation that we want to talk on? I mean, first of all, thank you. I thought it was a great presentation. You hit on a lot of interesting things. I see a couple slides on the exterior. Is that something you want to toggle to?
Sure, we have some slides of the exterior of the building. It shows the effect of some of the changes we made, and all in a positive way. These two elevations pretty much remain the same as the last time you looked at it. However, the other long elevation on the other side has become more articulated in the sense that by some of the spaces that we were able to move around, we were able to create a better entry in helping and it helps the innovation hub area, as well as that side entry presents itself a little bit stronger. And by putting a roof over that and having it set back a little bit, it helps to really articulate the building. And that's good, because you don't like to have a lot of, you like to have shadow play and some ins and outs, and this has helped. We have three-dimensional sketches to show those effects. Those are the photographs of of how the courtyard works in Marlborough. And we will work closely with you to design a courtyard that will work best for the PEC. So this is looking.
Hey, Dennis.
Stairway.
If we go back to that top view of the courtyard.
Yes.
Not everybody got to visit the Marlborough School. I was one, but if you could just from that view kind of talk about maybe for everybody else, like what we're looking at.
Oh, absolutely, Whitney. Yes. If you look in the right-hand side, you'll see a pair of doors. That is at the stairway, the monumental stair as one enters the building. And when one leaves there, they come to, in this particular case, a round area that has seating all around the edges of it, as well as lighting that can be used as an outdoor play area. An outdoor, I'm sorry, not a play area at all. In the middle, to keep down the amount of maintenance in the courtyard, instead of planting grass in there and working with the owner, we have artificial turf, which requires very little maintenance, and all of the planting that's in there is extremely low maintenance, even the trees and shrubs. At the other end, we have raised planters that can be part of the science program and studies where students, in this particular case in Marlborough, can raise vegetables and herbs and so.
They also work with the kitchen staff for herbs and other vegetables that they can grow.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then in our case, on the first floor, we'll be entering the courtyard from the sides, the two sides at the back. There and the other side, and from the front entry straight ahead. So it'll be quite dramatic, and the cafeteria will overlook the courtyard.
Okay.
Now, as we move through, so that's looking back at the stair, and there's that learning area we talked about, outdoor classroom. And as we move through, and that's looking from the stairs, from the upper landing of the stairs out onto the courtyard, so you can see how much sun it lets in, and how nice a space it really is for learning areas, and how much space it allows between the wings for letting a lot of air and light into the courtyard, and making sure that all of the learning spaces within the building have sunlight.
That's the gorgeous view, Dennis.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
And go on to the next. This is what we see as it stands. We're flying over at about 65 feet, I guess, in a helicopter or in a drone presently. And what we're trying to do is create, and as you'll see on the next slide, something that sort of fits more comfortably on a smaller footprint into the area. And still, this hasn't been brought up to date like the elevations have, but some of the articulation we spoke about will even enhance this even more. I think we have some other rendering, or we may not. This is again the old renderings, and I think you've seen these before. Are these all? These are the ones that.
It gives a sense of the building, Dennis. I mean,
Yes.
although it's been the changes are pretty de minimis in terms of the look of the building, I think this gives a good feeling for the building and how it would appear. It doesn't have all the plantings in it or what it will actually look like. It's just suggesting that's what it would look like.
Mhm.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so I wanted to just circulate back to a couple things. So Aaron had asked me by text about the square footage, and which is, as we discussed at the beginning of the presentation, a little bit higher than it was for the Jones-Whitsitt design, but less than it was a couple of weeks ago when they first started massaging this. I guess the question is whether, just to bring up the question that Aaron texted me, is whether the committee accepts this, because it is kind of a major milestone in this process, because it will become, as Mount Vernon Group really starts to sort of dig into developing the plans, it's going to become much harder to change this. So I want to just stop and pause for a moment and say, this is a moment of where I think we really do need to be saying in this meeting, yes, or there's more to do. So Erin, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I want to thank Mount Vernon Group because when we were looking at this last week, it was 108,000, and I know that in our ed plan we did ask for a world language classroom, which is 800 to 900 square feet, and a little bit bigger science room, which is 200. So we did add 1,000 square feet of programming. So to me, I feel, and I know I'm not a voting member, but I just want to say I really appreciate that when I'm looking at this. We added 1,000 square feet of programming, but the gross square footage is actually only up by, 400 to 500. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, Aaron, too, you missed earlier, we talked about what this actual net to gross ratio does for the project. It's 1.47 as opposed to 1.5. That actually, what that means is that, and I spoke today with Carl Brown at the MSBA just to confirm, we basically are going to get an additional 2,000 square feet within the existing program that we have that will be reimbursable that would not have been. So that's really a great thing. So you're going to get more of your project being eligible for reimbursement, which might have been such as those specialist offices and things of that nature the Katie's Closet and the parents' meeting room and things like that. And we'll go through and we'll be corresponding with MSBA as we complete the template to make sure we get the maximum amount. I think about 2,000 square feet additionally that would not have been eligible will be eligible because of the reduction in the net to gross ratio. So I think the team did a great job, and I think it's going to be reflected that way. As you can see,
great.
As compared to
thank you so much.
Yeah, the other
because that was in our ed plan that we had asked to how to increase the reimbursement rate on those, and I didn't know that this would be a way to do it, and thank you so much.
Yeah, we just confirmed it today. It's in there. It's a little section that says other, so we're able to do that. We discussed it with Carl Brown, and we will be making sure and confirming everything before we bring it back to the committee, and we're going to max out what will be reimbursed that would not have been because of the extra square footage. In other words, they're going to allow us to add up to the 1.5, what would have been 1.5. You're going to see it being reimbursed in that 72,000 that would not have been. So.
Okay. So I think we pretty much covered all the content we were going to do tonight. Just to look back at
Margaret, if I may, I think we should go back to what was supposed to be the first item on the agenda. There were just a few things in there that we needed to quickly go over.
Sure.
One thing to mention is the Good Now tour. If people want to go on Tuesday, 5/2, at 3:30 p.m. Erin Linville has offered to drive. So if we want to organize a tour, if you guys can email myself or Erin and let us know if you want to go, and then we can coordinate further on that. I know I want to go. I haven't been able to go on any of the tours yet, and I think that school is a better comparison than the Ludlow one that we're going to have the opportunity to see. So if you guys want to just email us on the side, and we can coordinate further on who can come, if that works, right, Miss Linville?
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay, and then were there other things in particular? You mentioned the vote language was approved, so we'll provide a longer update on that later in this meeting. So did you want to just reference that now or come back to it as we progress?
Since I'm here, I'm happy to give an update now, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's why we waited.
Great. So we got the blanket language from the MSBA. Rory and Josh worked with the city's lawyers and got it and added this contingency that talks about basically that this vote is only good if we get, it says, provided that any appropriation hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon the city being awarded a grant from the MSBA for the project. So that was important because we really wanted the city council to be reassured that voting in favor of this wouldn't Like they wouldn't be on the hook for it if we didn't get money from the MSBA, even though we expect them to. It's just such a big vote. And then the MSBA approved that language, MSBA legal team. And then they reminded us that once we have the actual number amount, we should go through our lawyers and the MSBA's lawyers again, just to make sure that all requirements are met. And then other updates were that Mount Vernon Group met with the City of Holyoke department heads, which will get you out those notes shortly. And Candace, I have these all in there, so you don't have to take notes, but I appreciate how hard you're working. And then we updated the date for the estimate, so they'll be reconciled the week of April 3rd. And then we have a flyer for the public meetings that's ready to be shared. And those will be on April 5th and April 10th. And it's also informational. So even if people aren't going to the meetings, it would be good for you to, in your places of work or business, or, or like to an email group of friends, you can email people. We're printing 500 copies.
Yeah, we're going to cover that in our communications group update as well. Some places to distribute.
Great. And then that's all that I have for updates on the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Linville.
Hey, Hugo, could you take the PowerPoint down at this point? Because I think we got a couple of other things to talk about. Okay. So, and there was also, so you mentioned the meeting with the safety groups. So we talked about city council. So working group updates, I think, are what's next. Are there any working group updates?
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Lubold.
One, I wasn't, if Erin Linville recommended that we had a vote on that we feel comfortable with the 106,215 square foot. Is that something we should do now? Is that what you were saying before, Erin?
I think it was Margaret who said it.
Okay.
I just said I supported it, but I do think that that would be great to spend time making sure people agree on that personally.
Okay. And also, are there any chances to auction off anything in the building, like auditorium chairs or things that, other communities might be able to, purchase? They have auditorium chairs that are ripped, things like that. I don't know.
Mark, we just went through this with Lynch, 5-6 years ago. We had bleachers in there that were recently, 15 years old. More Art Deco auditorium chairs, things like that. Some other furnishings on the inside. The market is very quiet for those types of things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We'll take Jamie's question and then we'll revisit the firming up of the square footage discussion. You're muted, love.
Sorry, guys. Sorry for my late attendance too. I had an appointment. But Mark's question, it's a procurement actually. The disposal of chairs, tables, anything, because it was all purchased with taxpayer dollars. We do have to surplus it as a procurement. But public auction, things like that. I mean, we'll look at what's there, what's salvageable, what anybody wants, and obviously try to get any money that we could.
Thank you.
That was all.
Thanks, Jamie. So circling back to the square footage discussion, do we feel like the plan is final so that way we're ready to take a vote on this, or is Mount Vernon tweaking anything further where we should wait and vote on a finalized plan next meeting?
I can answer that. It's the tweaking would have nothing to do with the program.
With square footage, overall square footage we're talking about.
We've tweaked it about as far as we can go.
Okay.
It's really, we've brought it down with 2,000 square feet off of what would be considered the average project at MSBA. So it's very, very tight.
Okay, great.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, does anybody have any other questions for the designers regarding the square footage? I know we don't have exact numbers yet, but of course they need this kind of finalized to put everything out to estimate.
This is
So
just
I-
on the square footage. This isn't on site plan or anything.
Right,
on
just the square footage.
Program. Okay.
I do see Mr. Yost's hand, so let him ask his question and then we'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I think actually Frank just answered my question. I was going to ask if we've got it down to the minimum square footage that we can fit our program into, and it sounds as if we have.
Yeah, that's right, Dave. It's really tight, but it will appear very spacious. Where we have cut the spaces, you'll never know it. It'll look you'll think it's the same as everything else if you go to the Good Now, which is the model it was built on.
Yeah, we had a meeting about this the other day, a couple of us, and basically they took like 8 inches from each side of the building. So it looks really minor when you're looking at it to scale, but it adds up to a significant number, which
Yes, it
really
does.
is helpful.
Very well put, yes.
So yeah, I'll entertain a motion that we formally approve the square footage as presented this evening for the overall size of the building.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Any further discussion? Oh, sorry. Second is Mr. Tallman. Thank you. Any further discussion?
So
All
I
right,
think we should, well, just a sec, please. So what we're
Yes.
talking about is the differentiation between 106 and 105. Aaron had alluded already that it's 375 square feet is the actual number. So if you look at the 375 feet differentiation there, you multiply it by what has been anticipated that the approximate value of the new structure be $500 a square foot. It's approximately $187,000, of which half of that would be reimbursed. So you're looking at a net cost of about just over $95,000 for the district. So it's negligible at best.
Thanks for that quick math, Mr. Anderson.
I would point out again that you have of usable space, net square footage is about 1,700 square feet more than the previous plan. See, that was the magic of bringing the net to gross ratio down. So you're getting about 1,700 square feet more in your usable space, that net space, than you had in the previous plan. Previous
And
plan
if you
was
do the quick math on that, then at your current reimbursement rate, Mount Vernon Group just saved you $500,000.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So on the motion, then I will take electronic or physical hands. If everybody could raise, keep them up for a minute, please, so that the note taker can take notes. And just a reminder,
Okay.
voting members only, please.
I'm just going to quickly do it aloud and read people's names.
Oh, sure.
And
You want to do
I
roll call?
I texted with Josh, and he said I could vote in support for him.
Oh, okay.
Dave, just say yes. Or
Yes.
no? Okay. Jamie? Yes, Jamie's a yes. Mark?
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Whitney?
Yes.
Aaron B?
Yes.
Camelia? She's a yes. I saw a nice nod.
Yeah.
Thank you. Deborah?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Raina? Oh, wait, sorry, Raina's, yes, you are voting. Sorry, Raina. Raina?
Yes. Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Okay, and then Anthony did not text me, but if he does, do I have your permission to add his vote in? Do we get 100? Okay.
Definitely.
And then Jessica, I think I missed you.
Jessica says yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did I miss anyone?
No, I think we're good.
Great.
So any opposed? For formality's sake. All right, thank you, everyone. A motion approved. And then the last thing to get to before we go to committee updates, I believe, was the possible city council schedule. Ms. Linville, do you want to review that with us, or did you want me to do that?
Yeah, I'm
Maybe you
happy
can
to.
screen
I'll
share?
share my screen. Yeah,
Great.
perfect. And the mayor said he's sorry he had to run. He's on dance duty pickup, but he has approved. We've approved and reviewed this.
Yeah.
Oh, this is not what I wanted to share with you guys. This is what I did. Do you see an Excel spreadsheet up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So this was great to get to this point. So we mapped out when the city council and possible finance subcommittees would be, and I really appreciate Councilor Tallman for talking with me earlier this week as well. And so we're going to reconcile the building cost estimates by 4/7. Then Rory, the treasurer, needs to work with finance on the bond schedule and the cash flow projection. And it needs to take into account the two-part package, both the building demolition and site package, and then the construction second. And Councilor Tallman suggested that we look at it with a 20-year bond, 25-year bond, and 30-year bond, and also that Hilltop Securities join on one of the first meetings. And then we mapped out when we need to request to be on the agenda. We think that being on the agenda on April 18th would work because we would have better cost estimates by then. We already have the language ready to go. Josh might ask us to go earlier with just the language without the number, so I'll follow his lead on that. And then we would expect that it would be referred to Finance Committee, and then that meeting would likely be on Wednesday, May 3rd. We expect that it will not be just a one meeting thing, that there will have more questions for us afterwards, so that we would go back again on May 17th. And then hopefully we would get a vote of approval, and they would send us back to the city council on June 6th. And we have a little bit of flexibility that there's another city council meeting after that date, just in case. And also, Councilor Tallman emphasized how important it would be that, you know, we figure out like what's really the city share going to be, both on a percentage basis and an absolute basis. And God bless Margaret, guys, she drove up to her house at 5:15 p.m. tonight, or 5:30 from her flight. She's probably been up for a really long time. So she and I haven't had a chance to actually talk through this, but we're going to be talking in the next couple days. So I'm happy to take any questions, or so many people have been involved in developing this. If, you know, Peter or Aaron, if anybody else wants to chime in, anything I missed, please do.
We'll let Mr. Lubold go with his question, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, just real quick, there was a 4/28 date on there, but you kind of skipped over that. Wasn't sure.
Oh, sorry. These dates I skipped over were just reminders for us about when we need to submit materials.
Oh, okay.
And Rory told us, like, hey, they're being really stringent about when to submit materials. So that they're always like 11:30 the 2 days before. So I just always made it 3 days before, because I don't want us to not do what they want us to do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I gotcha.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts or comments about that potential question? Mr. Tallman, did you want to add anything?
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Aaron, for bringing that forward. I think that's a great schedule, and it was good working with you on that. I did talk to Councilman McGivern, and that seems to be going to work out for those two meetings. And also that we're going to try to get some questions ahead for the board, like you stated, so that we can talk to my colleagues to see if we can get some questions so that the committee can be prepared and be ready for some of the things. I'm sure that's going to come forward. And I stated the big thing is the reimbursement rate on the project. So looks like everything is good, and I'll get with you after this meeting about getting a few little bullets. I'll make a little presentation next Tuesday night when Todd gives the president's report, and we'll put some stuff out there so my colleagues a little bit more aware of what's going on as far how far we've been going with this project so far. And it seems like everything's going into line, and I really appreciate all the hard work from everybody on the committee to move this project along. So thanks.
Councilor Tallman, we have our next joint school committee city council meeting on April 6th as well. It was supposed to be this past Tuesday, but it got canceled with the snow. And school building committee is always a running update on our tabled agenda. So, you know, I would love to have you come in to that meeting if you're available. I'll reach out to you on the side, and we can kind of, you know, give them a better update. But I think just coming from you as a counselor It's helpful to have you on hand for questions and to help us know what information the counselors will be looking for.
Okay.
So
And what day is that again?
We're proposing for April 6th. It would
What
be
time
after
is
the 150th event that is earlier that day. It's
Okay.
a Thursday, I believe.
Okay. And
But
if
I'll
I
message
can,
you on the side about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah.
Yost?
Yeah, just to clarify, because there was a little confusion about this at the last meeting. So the amount that we're going to be looking for is going to be based on the estimate for both, both phases, because we're going to hopefully have two separate bids. So it's going to be the estimating both of those together in one one request.
So can I just restate that for clarification? So there's two separate issues, I think, Dave, that I want to get straight. So there are two separate estimates that are done as part of this process in parallel to develop the cost for the project that will be the basis of the financing. And one is by an estimator working for the OPM, and one is by an estimator working for the designer. Then within those estimates, there are two, each of them are broken out as two pieces. There is a project, which is the demolition and site clearing is a project within each estimate. And then the construction of the new building is a project within the estimate. Does that make sense to everybody?
And so we have both,
Yeah,
we would have both numbers and the timing
of
when things are due.
You have to have both of them in order to be able to vote on the appropriation. But they're estimates, not bids, right? So I always say to people, there's a very strong temptation to sort of, make this number as small as possible because it's a lot of money. But you don't want to press on the estimates once they have been developed too hard, because they are what's protecting you in the long run in the financing agreement. So let's say we do an estimate and the estimate comes in at X, right? And the agreement with the MSBA is to fund X. Then you bid it, and if it's higher, the difference between X and the higher is 100% on the community. So you have to look at the number and say, we are not going to be bidding this for a number of months. What should we be? And this is, part of our job as well as the designer's job to advise you. What is going to be a number that protects the community from possible escalation?
That will be in the estimates.
And it will be included in the estimates. Yes. We'll talk about it as a contingency that protects you.
I would also say that whatever the council votes on, that is an authorization to use a certain amount of dollars. It doesn't mean you have to spend it all. I mean, we have another 7 months of design to go in where we're going to be, looking to always trim back, find more economical ways to do things. So you have an authorization to borrow a certain amount, but you don't have to do it. Believe it or not, we had a recent project where they came in $12 million under the appropriation. And so they were able they didn't need to use that fund. Same with the Marlboro project. That was about over 12 million under their appropriation. So they spent a good part of that rebuilding their roads and things like that around the school. They couldn't go to other parts of the city, but the access roads and things like that. So I'm not saying, those were better times. These inflationary times seem to be coming toward an end. So authorization does not mean that's what you're going to finally spend, as Margaret was pointing out. I'm more of an optimist. I like to think that we're going to come in under. So
Frank and I are a perfect pair in this because I am not an optimist on this. I am a pessimist. So You will be hearing two different perspectives on this, as well as whether escalation has started coming down again.
Yeah, I believe it has, and we're going to see, because we're opening our project in about 2 months in Lawrence, where you're also an OPM for another project over there. Your company is.
Yep.
We are at the exact same amount that was funded. That's what our estimates show, and I'm predicting it to be 3 to 5 million under the authorized amount, and that's during this very difficult inflationary period. We came in 33% under the early site package estimate. So that's what I mean by saving money on that early site package. So there is some good things that are happening. I am optimistic. I think things, I feel it, that they're changing. Contractors are getting nervous, meaning that they're bidding a lot tighter than they had been a year ago.
All right.
May it be so.
So if we're good to move on, we'll move along to updates from the working groups. I heard Mr. Lubo mention that the design committee met. So Mr. Lubo, did you have any other updates that you wanted to share, or were you able to get all your questions?
No, I think we really, the questions I asked earlier, and Whitney as well, is kind of what we talked about at our meeting regarding the site plan, and just thinking down the road of making sure we get a building, that we get a school, that our kids need and deserve, and the community deserves. And that was really what we met about. And I think the other folks that came, really helped them to talk about the site plan and where things were located, to kind of get themselves situated and more aware of what the plan is looking like. So it was a good, fruitful meeting, and looking forward to having some more. So,
all right, great. Thank you so much. Mr. Yost, did finance meet? I don't think so, but I just wanted to be sure.
No, not as of yet.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Glasheen's not with us. Communications did meet. As Miss Linville was beginning to mention, the school communications department director came up with a really nice flyer, which I just got this afternoon. It looks really good. So we will share that with the committee and ask you guys to please circulate. Kathy Ortiz and I worked on, Kathy sent me a really nice Excel spreadsheet, and I was just looking over that and adding a couple places that we would like to see flyers distributed. The district's printing quite a few hundred, and we're going to be able to get our hands on. I'm going to pick up I can't talk right now. I will pick up some copies from the district when they're printed, and I can also print more at my office. And so we were kind of hoping a couple people on the committee could volunteer a little bit of their time to help distribute flyers once we finalize a list of places we'd like to see them. Not necessarily to pass out at places, because we know that might be challenging, but for example, we can tape one to the door of the YMCA, most likely, Boys and Girls Club, various places that we'd like to see them offered for display. So I'll circulate the flyer and as well as the Excel spreadsheet to the full group. And then if people can let us know when they can help distribute the flyers, the public meeting is April 5th. So we'd like to see the flyers being distributed at least a week in advance, and we should have them early next week. So it's really important to start getting people, the public, rallied and involved. So attendance at the first public meeting will be really great. And then at the first meeting is in person, the second meeting is virtual. And at those meetings, we're going to start encouraging people to reach out to their city councilors, start supporting the impending vote and stuff like that. So that's our main focus right now, is just making sure that we're doing as much outreach and communication as we can to ensure that nobody feels like they didn't know what was going on. So on that note, also, if anybody has suggestions when they see the Excel spreadsheet of additional places that they'd like to see flyers, more information distributed, the better. So other than that, I think we're good on subcommittee updates. So moving on, we need to approve the minutes from 3/2.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Lubold, and second by Mr. Tallman. We can see a raise a, if there's any discussion, feel free to interrupt me here, folks. But seeing none, I will do a raise of hands, virtual or electronic, to vote on the approval of the minutes from the 3-2 meeting. Just keep them up for just a second, folks, so she can get a good count. All right, great. And then if anybody doesn't approve of the minutes, please feel free to raise their hand or make themselves known at the time. All right, seeing none, I'm quickly looking through the rest of these notes. I'm pretty sure we covered everything else. Our next meeting is going to be, we're meeting next week again, folks. So Thursday, the 23rd at 6 p.m. And we're going to be reviewing building systems. And then Friday, a reminder that Friday, March 31st at 3:30 is the building tour of the school in Ludlow. So if you guys want more information on that, we plan to leave Holyoke around 3 p.m. You can reach out to Miss Linville to add yourself to the tour, and I'm sure she'll circulate an email about a meeting spot and what the plan is. So again, the public meeting is April 5th, a virtual one April 10th. And then we meet again Thursday, April 13th and Thursday, April 25th. Does anybody else have anything else that they need to discuss or want to go over at tonight's meeting? Mr. Tallman?
Yeah, just a question on, I know you have it on the flyer, but where's the public meeting going to be held for the 5th?
It's going to be at Holyoke High.
Okay.
Yep. Nice central location, most likely in the cafeteria.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yep. All right, so seeing nothing else that we need to go over, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was, again, Mr. Lubold with the motion, Mr. Tallman with the second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will do a raise of hands, please, for all those in favor of adjournment. Keep them up so Aaron can count.
Sorry, who was the motion in the second?
The motion was Mr. Lubold and the second was Mr. Tallman.
Okay, like every other. Got it. Okay,
all right,
good.
thanks everyone. If anybody is not in favor of adjournment, you may raise your hand or acknowledge yourself at this point in time. All right, so it is 8:09. We are officially done with this meeting. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you again next Thursday.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.